Good evening, YouTube. I hope everyone's excited as I am for tomorrow night's UFC 182. This is the weigh-ins. This is episode number 7. And tonight I am joined by MMA artist Chris Rini, MMA Latest staff writers Jordan, Casey, and Scott. And tonight we've got a special guest, a man that wants to test CM Punk's mettle in his first professional fight in the octagon, Matt Darley. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to kick off with the main event picks for tomorrow's most exciting fight, and then we're going to have a little chat to Matt about why he thinks he should be given the chance to fight CM Punk, and then we're going to wrap it off with a little bit of other MMA news. Chris, we've already spoke about tomorrow's card a little bit, but do you want to kick us off and give us the reasons you're excited for tomorrow's fight, why you're excited for tomorrow's fight, are you excited for tomorrow's fight, and who you think is going to win? The main event. Not going through the whole card as we covered that on Tuesday. And if you want to see who we picked, then go check out Tuesday's show. In fact, hang on, before you dive in, there's something else I need to mention as well. Sorry, we're new to this. We have just picked up our first sponsor of the show. That is DraftKings.com. I'm sure you've heard everybody and anybody talking about it. That's DraftKings.com. Check out in the show notes underneath here. I'll put the link. That's for our special affiliate, and you can kick us back a couple of quid so we can keep these shows running. Chris, as you were.
Thank you. I am crazy excited about this. I'm right up with everybody who's saying this is the most exciting thing since Crow Cop Fedor. And for a long time I was thinking, it's like basically a coin flip, maybe like a 55-45 Jones Cormier. I gotta admit, I listened to the MMA Untethered podcast the other day, and I laugh at how they're just saying Jones is gonna steamroll him. They almost had me. But this is one of those fights where I'm just more excited to see how two really smart guys approach this fight, more so than make believe that I'm gonna have this broad insight onto how it's going to play out. I really think that, Jones comes from a camp that's renowned for its ability to game plan, and I think that Cormier is this weird kind of fighter who really, allows himself to fight with his at his opponent's level. I thought that he could have pushed things harder against Frank Mir and against Roy Nelson, and I think that Jones is gonna be a new test for him, and I think he's gonna really finally show us what it's like when he's firing on all cylinders. So I'll leave it at that and let somebody else take it from here.
Well, what's your prediction? You can't just sit on the fence like that. Who are you going?
Okay. All right. If I had to guess, I would say I picked Jones. And it's totally because I'm friendly with a couple people in his camp. They made some requests. I jokingly did some drawings of Cormier ducking under a spinning elbow and taking him down, and one of his coaches sent me a message. It's like, now you gotta draw DC eating a head kick. So I gotta give them some. I can't pick against them,
Fair enough. Have you done those drawings?
Yeah. Let me see. I'll see if I can dig it up. Can I post it someplace? Should I post it in the?
You can hold it up to the camera, and we'll post the photos on the Facebook page once we're finished, if you want.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool.
Jordan. Hit me up, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. I wanted to talk with you guys on Tuesday about it, but other items had precedent. But yeah, I'm very, very excited about this fight. Probably the most excited I've been in, along like everybody's saying, at least a few years. Leading up to the fight, I've been, like Chris, very split down the middle on it. Up until this week, where Jones is huge, man. He is massive compared to DC. And we knew that just looking at their stats. We knew that Jones is going to have a 12-inch reach advantage, whatever it was. But he is just towering over them. And seeing these videos that they're posting, it really seems like DC is more out of his game than Jones is. To me, anyways, the way that I read kind of the latest little vlog that the UFC puts out, the number 4, they kind of got in a little scuffle backstage where they were getting in each other's face. It really seemed to me that DC was pissed off, I guess, for better than for lack of a better term. But anyways, Jones is enormous. I've also kind of been looking into it. DC's his opponents, Strikeforce and UFC records since he has fought them are 10-17. They also have an average age of 36 years old. So, I mean, not to say that DC's not skilled, but he has not fought the same level of competition that John Jones has.
That's a great stat, that, to be fair, mate. That is a really interesting stat. That
Yeah.
they've not.
So, I mean, he's catching all these high-level fighters on the tail end of their career. You know, he fought Mir. He fought, I mean, Nelson might be the exception. Bigfoot might be the exception. But, you know, Barnett, all these guys that he beat and manhandled and looked great doing it, these guys are all on the tail end of their career. Anyways, that being said, I still think it's going to be a great fight because he has the highest caliber wrestling you can have in MMA, and I think that will be an actual thing that John has to deal with. But I see him being able to recognize patterns and be able to stop what DC's doing. I think he'll get the finish. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I think Jones will win. He'll finish the fight.
Interesting. We'll go to our prospective MMA professional. Matthew, introduce yourself to our massive audience. It's not that massive. Don't get excited. And let us know what you think. Are you excited for tomorrow night's main event? Why are you excited? And who do you think is going to win? I think we've just lost Jordan as soon as he finished.
Well, thank you for having me. Like you introduced me, my name is Matt Dolly. To be honest with you, this is probably the first UFC main event I have been personally excited about for an extremely long time. And I'm going to be honest with you, I have to go back to my senior year of high school. I wrestled Nelson York Buckeye Wrestling Program. Shout out to Matt Yinger. I know he's probably watching. I wrestled all through school, and I watched DC take down the greatest ever, Cal Sanderson. And ever since then, I've kind of been a fan of his. You know, when I heard he was coming off of his Olympic run and finally came to MMA, I've always kind of, you know, cheered for him, you know, and to see where he's gone through his life and where he's at now. Not that Mr. Bones hasn't gone through his ordeals, but I think it's awesome that DC he's at where he's at, and that makes me excited for this fight. You know, I think stylistically it's going to be an exciting fight. It always helps to have two guys that really don't like each other. That's always a massive plus. But I got to be honest with you, man. I know I'm going to catch some flack over this. I'm going to be partial to DC, but I think he is going to overwhelm Jones. I really do. I don't think that Jones has fought a guy like DC, and I think he's going to. The key is the reach advantage. If he can break down the reach advantage and get Jones against the cage, I don't think Jones is going to be able to stop him from taking him down and being on top of him. I just don't. Me personally, I just don't see it happening. So that's where I'm going with the fight. I think that's going to be the storyline of the fight. If it's going to, you know, if DC's going to win, and I think he's going to grind out a third or fourth round TKO. That being said, the only person in this fight that's seen the fifth round is Jones, and that's where he has a extreme advantage. And the longer the fight goes, the better off for Mr. Jones. So that's my prediction.
Interesting. Matt, you just joined us. I think you're taking the place of Jordan, whose link seems to have copped out. How are you doing, my mate?
Doing good. How's everybody doing?
We're good. We've just gone straight into tomorrow's main event chat after we covered the whole card on Tuesday. So we're just asking you, what's got you excited about tomorrow? Are you excited about tomorrow's main event? What's got you excited about tomorrow's main event, and which way is it going to go?
Wow. Excited would be a gross understatement. It's been one of the biggest fights that I've been anticipating for a long time. I see this fight, if I'm being honest with myself, as trying to put all the media hype aside. I see John Jones winning this fight, mainly due to his ability to use his reach and use it so effectively. Daniel Cormier will make it interesting because of his ability to get in and just, ragdoll people. that's going to be the tail of the tape, if you ask me, in my opinion. Can he get in on John Jones, and can he stay on him and keep the pressure on him the entire fight? If he can do that, it'll be a very interesting grind-out type of fight. If not, I see John Jones staying on the outside, using his reach, using leg kicks, keeping the hands stretched out, not pointing at any eyes or anything like that. But it's gonna be interesting to see, man. It's definitely one of the most exciting fights of the past year for me.
Stop being a pussy. Whose hand gets raised?
John Jones. John Jones winning.
Right.
Yep.
That's so far with 3-1. Casey, are you going to book the trend, or are you going to go with the flow?
I did not know I was next, but if I'm next, I am breaking trends. I'm not actually super excited for this fight. I mean, it's the most exciting fight of this card, but it's not like this isn't blowing me out of the water. I think it's going to be like one of those fights where if DC can take him down, he's going to win dominantly and probably finish him. Otherwise, I see Jones just boxing him up for like 5 rounds. Kind of like the Rampage fight, but probably less exciting. Not to say he's boring, but I think that's how he has to beat DC, because I don't see him taking down DC. So I think that's what we're going to see. I don't think he's going to knock out DC. So I think either DC is going to surprise everyone and finish or dominate John Jones, or John Jones is going to Tommy Hearn style just box him up. I mean, obviously he's not, but you know what I mean. He's the long reach. He's going to jab him up, work his range kicks, teep him. But I'm going to pick Cormier by if he's got the strategy of no fear and risk getting hit coming in to throw bombs and then take him down, he wins. That's my pick, is Cormier by that.
Interesting.
Very cool.
I can't believe you're not excited. Why are you even here?
I'm excited, but I mean, y'all are acting like this is the greatest fight of all time. There's been better fights in the last 6 months.
But there might be better fights, and there's every chance that this is going to not live up to expectation. We know that.
Well, I mean, I was more excited. I was more excited for fights in the last 6 months. People just love Jones. I love Jones too, but like Chris Weidman, Machida, oh my God, that was amazing. That was the most exciting fight of the year for me, like leading up to it.
Scotty, you're next. What are you saying, homie?
I think Case makes a great point there. My point was going to be, no matter who wins this fight, we're going to look back and say the build-up to this fight has been brilliant. It's been a long time since we've had a build-up with such anticipation that has captured not just the media, like outside media sources that are picking up this fight. And like Kay says, he doesn't even think this is going to be a big fight, but yeah, we haven't had a fight like this in a long time that has captured everybody. And if he doesn't even think, as an MMA fan, this is a big fight, it kind of shows where we are in the business of MMA if we're like struggling to have fights like this. Like, I'm thinking back, the last time I think it's the last time Anderson, and that was a year ago. You know, think about that for like MMA. This UFC is supposed to be putting on the best fights, and the most excited for a fight I've been in a year. But other than that, I think Cormier is just going to take it and beat him up. Simple. I rambled on enough yesterday about it, but I think Cormier's wrestling is just too good.
That's an interesting one. Myself, I think I covered it quite a bit, so I'm only going to touch on this. I think if DC puts the pressure on and puts Jones on the back foot, I think Jones doesn't really fight great going backwards. I think he presses him up against the cage, puts his hands on him, probably drags him to the floor, puts his hands on him again. And I think if he can keep that up, he might not get a finish, but he'll certainly be looking good on the cards. And I think if you can keep that up, you only need to win 3 out of the 5 rounds if it goes the distance. And I think DC's certainly got that ability in him to do that. I want DC to win because he seems like a good dude. I like him. I like his attitude. And I want to see someone different. Different mixes up, doesn't it? I mean, nobody gave Chris Weidman a chance going into the Anderson Silva fight, and look what happened. More people are giving DC a chance. I agree with what Jordan said before we lost him in terms of that. He generally has fought the legends that he's fought on the down slope of their career, if you like. But that's not to say that he's not dominated them guys. Like he says in the previews, he's not lost a round. You can only beat what's put in front of you, and he's done that. And this is by far and away the biggest fight of his career by such a long way, the toughest fighter. But I see him taking it. I see him taking it in a controversial decision, and I see the UFC ended up having to have like a trilogy of rematches. You know how much they love a rematch. Chris, you want to chime in?
I was just thinking that of all of DC's fights that I've seen, the one that I can imagine him most looking like this one is the Mir fight, where he really just bullied him. And the reason is because Mir outweighs Jones by a good at least 40 pounds, and he really just kept him pinned against the cage. And one of the things I liked most that he did was he would hold him there and then just unload a bunch of hooks to the body, and then get right back on him and just pin him there like for minute after minute. And I think that dictating like the stopping Jones's movement, I feel like that's the one type of fight that I could see him really kind of messing with his head and really stopping him from being able to. Jones is just an offensive machine, prodigy, whatever you want to call it. And when you stifle someone's ability to do what they do, that can really get under their skin. Like when Johnny Hendricks taking away GSP's jab. It really kind of ruined the rest of his game plan. And that, I think up against the fence is the one place where he could do that. To take away his limbs, take away the reach, but also put some wear on him. Anyway, that's all I've been thinking.
Yeah, I mean, the hype around the fight, the UFC, if this is manufactured, they've done an absolutely incredible job of manufacturing this, because I've bought it, and I don't know. There's three possible things at play here. Either I've bought the hype massively that DC can go and do this. Either I hate Jones and I just don't realise it, or DC genuinely has a chance. It's one of those three, and I don't know which one it is. It's probably an element of all of them, if I'm honest, really. But anyway, we are looking forward to it. The weigh-ins are about to start in about 30 minutes. We're about to kick off. We've just finished with a CM Punk Q&A where he said absolutely nothing of note. It was boring. He told us nothing that we didn't already know. So let's get into that, because tonight, as we said, we've got Matt joining us. Matt's campaigning for a fight the chance to get into the octagon, and fair play to the guy. He's got an amateur record. It's not amazing. He's had a few fights. He's probably just about more deserving on paper, if you take away the Twitter followers that CM Punk has got, of being in the octagon. So Matt, why don't you tell the people why you should be given the shot against the UFC's next big thing?
Well, the first thing I want to say is just thank you for the opportunity for getting my voice out there. And let me say this before I pitch my 2 cents. There are a plethora of people that are deserving, if you will. And I'm not trying to say by no means am I number one on that list. But as you stated earlier, I am 3-1 as an amateur. My 3 victories are finishes, and as we kind of talked a little bit in our beforehand conversation, like being around the fight game, for a while, anybody knows that any athletic commission in any state is not going to approve CM Punk fighting an already contracted UFC fighter or an experienced pro fighter at that. Anybody with a lot of fights, they're not getting that fight. It's not going to be sanctioned. So I'm going to fall back onto, some people might remember this. I was actually there for this fight. I was ringside. Herschel Walker, was the same kind of scenario. Didn't have a fight. They brought in somebody with I think a 2-2 pro record who, the guy was what he was, and he was pretty much brought in for Herschel to fight and gain experience. I kind of feel like the UFC is in that spot where they need somebody to fill the slot to fight CM Punk that at least has credibility, that has won and has done things in a ring. And at the same time, it has to be somebody that if he beats, it makes it so it's like, well, he didn't just beat a can. He actually beat somebody that had some skill, and it justifies CM Punk being there. And I think that's what the UFC is going to try to do to build him up one fight at a time. Because, you know, they want him around for more than one fight, I think. So for the slot that for what they need, I think I fit that mold. You know, I'm his size. I can fight at 170 or 185, which I've heard that he's talked about both. You know, 3-1, as I said, and to put my sales pitch out there for my poster, I served 4 years in the United States Air Force, deployed twice to support the war. I've been a firefighter since I was 18, so you know I'm a public servant. I'm a loving father, a loving husband to be. You know, I'm just kind of like your typical all-American guy. You know, recently bought a house, living the American dream. Kind of gave up on the goal of the UFC, and then something like this happens. You know, I don't want a payday. I don't want any fame. I just want the opportunity to go fight on the biggest stage, you know, and that's how I kind of saw this window open. And it's funny because it all started at my firehouse. We were actually watching the UFC on Fox, and they bring in CM Punk and they interview him, and all the guys I work with, they kind of watch the fights, and they're like, who is this guy? And they always look to me because I'm the fighter, and I'm like, I don't know who he is. I've never heard of him. And they announce he's a professional wrestler, so on and so forth. And that's how it kind of started, was the, hey, you think you could beat that guy? And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I could beat that guy. You know, he's never fought. So that's how it kind of spiraled into this whole internet campaign, if you will. And I don't have a large following, but it's growing, which I'm very happy about. Thank you to everybody that supports me. But no way am I a world beater. No way. If you put me in there against any other UFC contracted fighter, it is a very bad night for me. I think I can hold my own with a lot of guys. I believe in that, but by no means am I, you know, anything special. I just feel I fit the slot that the UFC could use to put against Punk. And let me say this out loud before it goes any farther, because I say that they need somebody like me for him to fight because they want him to gain experience. Before this goes anywhere, I will tell you that I will go there to defeat him. You know, I've never once gone to a fight to lose, so I don't want anybody to think I'm just doing this to get in the UFC one time. You know, I want this opportunity to win on the main stage, and you know, my boy can always look up, my son can always look up and be like, holy cow, look what my dad did. My dad, you know, won a fight on the world's biggest stage. That's kind of, you know, one of my main drives for it. But
so what we're looking at here is the MMA version of Rocky 1, isn't it? The average Joe gets the shot at the main stage. It's not a belt, but it's a pay-per-view. It's on the main stage. It's in front of the cameras, and it's an opportunity for you to get a taste of the big time.
You are 100% correct, and it's funny you say that because I don't know if I did it on the underground or my Twitter because I've been spamming everybody, but I think it was Twitter because I tried to tag Dana White. One of the things I said was Apollo Creed gave Rocky the chance. Give me the chance. You know, I'm just your average fighter that's had some experience. I'm nobody special, you know, but if you're going to give somebody like CM Punk the chance, who awesome wrestler, I respect the sport, you know, all that 9 yards, I'm not going to say anything bad about him, but if somebody like him gets the chance, play the flip and give one of us, one of the people that's been the lifeline veins of the fight, you know, like training up people at local gyms, cornering guys, you know, had a few fights myself, you know, I've been around the sport for such a long time. Why not give somebody like me the chance to perform, you know, and show what I got? That's all I'm asking.
Scott, you want to say something to Matt?
Yeah, Matt. CM Punk has said in his interviews that he would not be fighting until later in 2015. I'm just wondering, are you in fighting shape, or would you take a fight before this fight, or are you just fill me in on your what condition you're in? As if could you have a fight now, or would you have to have a tune-up fight? Or
I would say that nobody that does not have a fight scheduled is in fighting shape after Thanksgiving and Christmas, you know. But I think if you gave me a little bit of time, I could be in fighting shape pretty quick, you know. I, I, I work out all that 9 yards. I hit the mats every now and then. As far as the tune-up fight, I will say that I had my first few amateur fights in 2006. And then I didn't fight again until 2011 as far as MMA. I had a couple kickboxing fights in between there, but do I feel I would need a tune-up fight? No. Like I have no problem being in front of people. I don't really get the, you know, my last fight was in front of almost 2,000 people for a regional amateur show. That's a lot of people, and it was in my hometown. And so if there was ever going to be pressure, it's then. And for me, I feel I don't need a tune-up fight, especially since he's not wanting to fight till the fall anyways. That is a long time to train in that 9 yards. Now, if it was something they wanted, yeah, you know, not a problem. I would fight somebody in a couple months if it's what it meant, you know. Just give me the time to put in a camp, you know, to put a game plan together and get in fighting shape, because there's in shape and then there's fighting shape. Two separate, different demons. So, you know, I mean, do I feel I would have ring rust? No, but that's my 2 cents.
Punk has come out today, I think, and mentioned that he's going to be training at Rufus Sport. After all the things that have gone on in the last couple of months at Rufus Sport, I was a little bit surprised, actually, that that's the place that he's chosen to go. But that's where Pettis is. He's going to be going to a world-class gym. If you're given this opportunity, where would you go? You're in Florida. ATT's around the corner, surely. Is that not the most obvious place to go?
Well, I'm actually lucky with that because the 2 gyms I regular are Unlimited Kickboxing in Merritt Island and also Fight Factory in Rockledge, Florida. And Fight Factory is a official ATT school. They recently developed their relationship with ATT, and you know, the good thing about that kind of connection, although I've never taken advantage of it, is that Lifeline is there to go to a bigger ATT school and possibly train with the better guys. So, you know, like if Dana White hears this and gives me the shot and the stars align and, you know, Jesus blesses me, I mean, definitely I would probably take some advantage of that if I could, to get down there and get as much training with a high-level camp like that if I could. But to be honest with you, you know, nothing against anybody anywhere else. I like the gyms I train at, and I'm 100% comfortable that if I could not get to a bigger, better gym, that I could train where I'm at, you know. And you know, I want to give a shout-out to the Jungle over in Orlando. I have not trained over there a lot, but, you know, that was a school that was owned by Mike Lee, Seth Petrozelli, Tom Lawyer. I trained over there with those guys. Nicest guys on the planet, and great gym. I'm pretty sure if I needed the help, they'd be there for me too. So, you know, the Florida MMA community is pretty awesome. I think if I got this opportunity, there'd be a lot of open doors. And but push come to shove, I'm a working man. I'm a fireman. I work 24 on, 48 off. So I got to go to work every 3rd day. I can't move to South Florida, you know. So if I had to do the majority of my training at the 2 camps, we got enough. I have enough unfortunate friends there that have no problem beating me up every day to get me in shape for this fight. And we've got, you know, I've got regional kickboxing champions, you know, national kickboxing amateur champions there to beat me up. You know, I've got brown belts, purple belts, all people that would be on CM Punk's level, if you will, to train with. So I'm confident I could stay here and put up a hell of a fight. Probably win.
Speaking of CM Punk's level, one thing that he did mention in the Q&A that's just ended is that he has a fuzzy recollection when asked about what level he got to in Kempo. Someone questioned him on his background in Kempo, which was the thing that he said to Joe Rogan, that he has a background in Kempo. So someone said, well, what is your background in Kempo? What belt did you get? Now, anybody that's trained in martial arts will be able to tell you exactly the level they're at, I would think. CM Punk's reply was, I have a bit of a fuzzy recollection of what belt I got to. I was 18 or 19. I was expecting to say 8 or 9, actually, with having a fuzzy recollection of it. So I'm going to say his background in Kempo is bullshit, and it's about as good as his background in Jiu-Jitsu. Probably worse than his background in Jiu-Jitsu, because I accept being on the road. it's hard to train with the Gracies, and he's probably a lot higher level than the white belt that he claims to be in Jiu-Jitsu. You've mentioned kickboxing. What is your ground game background?
I actually started folk style wrestling. I'm from Ohio, so God bless the Midwest. That's a huge sport. I've wrestled since I was in the 3rd grade, and I was nobody special. Hell, I never even qualified for state in high school. But you have that many years experience, and a lot of people already know this, but wrestling's the oldest martial art on the planet. There's just no dojos because it's all high school wrestling teams. But I've wrestled for that long, pretty much straight out of high school. A few years after high school, I got into jiu-jitsu because I thought it was like wrestling, and I pretty much have been on the mats ever since. I found this sport I found jiu-jitsu and judo when I was 21. So I had about a 2-year lag where I was a high school wrestling coach and not competing. But I found jiu-jitsu, and I've been there ever since. And of course, once you hit a jiu-jitsu mat, there's always a boxing ring somewhere nearby, and then next thing you know, you're training boxing and kickboxing. So my base, someone could probably reckon, is wrestling, and all three of my wins are submission, 2 being armbar and 1 being from strikes. But the submission from strikes was because I was able to obtain the crucifix side control and just punch the guy till he gave up, which was a dominant wrestling position. So I'm a wrestler, if that answers the question.
I think it does. Chris, you want to say?
Oh, no, I was just going to think, be persistent and be methodical with your campaign. Just because I have a strong suspicion it's going to be a minimum of 6 months before this guy does anything other than press. I've been, working my way up in the MMA media for, like 2.5 years. And I'll be honest, the first 6 months I didn't interact with anyone. I just basically built up my my body of work. And I feel like this stuff just takes time. It takes time more than anything.
Well, I appreciate it, and the social media thing is new to me. I have a Facebook because I live in Florida, but I'm from Ohio, and all my friends or family are there. But like Twitter and Instagram, it's really new to me, and it's funny because God love my fiance, I'm over here like, how do I Twitter somebody? Like I have no clue, So she's been holding my hand through it, and it has been a little bit of a process, but between the underground of MMA.tv, and I went and put my name out there on the UFC's Facebook page on a link that they shared about CM Punk being able to get punched in the face. I got hundreds of people supporting me, and quite a few emails, people from all over the world. So it's been very encouraging. So the fire I had before definitely isn't out, and I appreciate your advice, and I understand where you're coming from. That it can, sometimes you wonder, like, am I crazy for this? But and I understand it's going to be a long time before they announce an opponent for him. I believe that they're not going to do it till probably after the summer. And I'm not going anywhere. I was here yesterday. I'm going to be here tomorrow, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. So.
Yeah, I hear you. I go through. I have plenty of those days where I think I'm crazy. I decided I was going to get a job because I draw pictures. That's the core of it. And it's like I have a baby, but you know what? It's all right. It's all right. You stick out the bad days and you make it through. So I'm wishing you luck.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
I think you've got the support of all us. Any of the other 3 guys, Matt, Casey, Scott, you got any questions that you want to ask, or should we move on to our next topic?
Yeah, I'll just drop a couple of 2 cents real quick. I think coming from your position where you're at, I think it's the right move for a guy like you, for CM Punk to fight for the first fight, mainly because I think if you're an established name in the UFC already, you should want no part of that fight whatsoever. Because
yes, sir.
Because if you go in there and you're a name in the UFC and you go in there and get beat by a guy that has never trained, never had any fights, any type of competitions in the past, since his Kempo days or whatever, it's only downhill from there. So for a guy like yourself, who's really like you said yourself, you're not really pursuing the UFC dream as much anymore. It's all uphill from you, right? So if you go in there and do some things, it could be some big things for you. And if it doesn't go your way, I mean, well, it was an experience. You got to be on that big stage. You got to, have your name in the lights, and it was something that you'll never forget. But for guys that are already there in the UFC, no, don't do it. Don't do it. But yeah, man, I'm definitely supporting you, man. I hope it happens. That'd be really cool.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you a ton for that. And you're right. Anybody in the UFC, that is the losest of the lose-lose situation. Even if you demolish that guy, there is nothing that they're going to gain from it. And that's why I know they're going to have to seek outside, and they're going to try to handpick somebody that they know will be competitive, but they think he can beat, but is also credible, and that's what I'm trying to slide myself in there.
There you go.
I think there's a wider question that I don't think any of us know the answer to, which is the reason Punk was signed in the first place. We can all speculate and say, yeah, pay-per-view views, but I personally think there's a bit more to it. I think there was a chance that someone along the lines of Bellator was probably sniffing around him, the way they've been sniffing around Brock and the way they've been sniffing around Fedor. And I reckon there's no backup or research or anything to this. It's just my belief that something along the lines of this happened where UFC got wind that Bellator was talking to him and just went, just get him signed and we'll deal with him afterwards. And I think that's the situation they find themselves in now, where they go, okay, now what do we do? And I think we may have spoke about this either in our writers group or we might have done it on another Hangout. I can't remember. But I think the best thing they can do now is, if they want eyes on this guy, they need to do something like a tough show, maybe a little bit of a different format, rather than it being a competition. But they need to do a tough Punk where it's just him, and maybe it's just his whole training camp and his whole process of learning, from day one at Rufus Sport, and make a series out of it. And let's turn some of these wrestling fans into educated MMA fans by following the journey of Punk from, famous actor to MMA prospect, because that's what he is at the end of the day. I mean, I see nothing outstanding from him physically. I see nothing outstanding from him in his background. I see nothing. He is an average Joe with a massive Twitter following, and that is the top and bottom of it. He's an actor. If we're going down the road of actors, Brad Pitt's a big star. He'd get a lot of people in. Just Justin Timberlake, he'd probably get a lot of people in as well. But that seems funny, but they've signed an actor. I don't think the UFC knew what they was doing, and I think now they're scratching their heads and they're going to come up with something that they can do. But you are right. They're not going to feed him to an established star. They're not going to feed him to a can either, because if he goes out there and he whoops someone in 30 seconds, everyone's going to go, stay at this. They're going to want something competitive, and I don't even think they would be upset if he lost. I think if you was to fight him and you lost, you'd be cut. But if he loses, I think he gets 3 or 4 shots at this before they would have to cut him, I think.
Can't say I disagree.
Yeah, I don't know where they're going to go with it. I really don't. And it's going to be an interesting few months while they figure it out, especially with all the lawsuits that are going on, the Reebok thing, and the possible birthing of a fighters union, which I suppose it's now time to move on to. The big news in the MMA world this week has been, well, apart from UFC 182, John Jones and Daniel Cormier's beef, has been lawsuits. You can't move in the MMA world without seeing the word lawsuit. And amazingly, the UFC has just backed down, and a direct quote from Dana, as usual, there's expletives in this, but we're all big boys here, so Dana White summarizes the situation. Our legal team completely screwed it up. We fucked it up and we will fuck it up again. That's what the commission's there for. What I'm talking about is Kung Lee's drug tests. The UFC has decreed that they are no longer going to be doing out-of-season drug tests, which basically sounds like free reign on doing drugs. It's going to be like the Pride days. Unbelievable. I'm Kung Lee obviously was suspended following a botched test, we are supposed to say, in light of his defeat to Michael Bisping. He took them to court and he has won. Dana's backed down and they said the UFC will no longer be doing any drug tests. Matt, do you want to dive in on that? What do you think of that? Sorry,
well,
Matt Wells.
yeah, I think it's pretty interesting that the UFC is doing this. Yeah, you have a pretty big mistake there with Kung Lee. I don't know, man. It's a weird deal because now you're opening up a whole another can of worms that can cause other issues just because of one mistake. And it's a pretty big mistake. I mean, I think you should just say, make it right for that one person and continue doing what you were doing, because now you're going to have guys going to try to sneak through the cracks and do some things that they're not supposed to do. Whereas before, you had this testing going on, guys were watching what they were doing a little bit closer. Now they're like, oh, hey, UFC's backing off. Let's try to sneak in a cycle here and, gain a little advantage where we can. But I don't know. I think they should have just did some stuff with Kung Lee personally to make it right with him instead of doing away with their whole testing deal.
Yeah, it's a strange one. Kung Lee's a ballsy guy. He sued the UFC twice in the last month or so, and he's presently still employed. I don't know, maybe he wants to go and fight for somebody else. He's really trying his hardest if that's what he wants to do. Does anyone else have anything else they want to chime in on? Or are we going to wrap that up for this week? Chris?
I was just going to say, with Kung Lee, he's kind of in a similar position as like a Nate Diaz or something like that, or even a Wanderlei Silva, where they're just they have this inherent value, and the UFC, regardless of their relationship, can't afford to let them make money for someone else. Like any of those three guys will get snapped up in a heartbeat. They can make money, anywhere. They have a personality, they have a name, they have all that. And honestly, when it comes to the whole Kung Lee and testing and whatnot like that, I think what we're really seeing is how the UFC is existing in this dual role as a single company, a fight promotion, and somehow a sport. And I think that when you're a sport, you don't have quite as much control. You're more held to this kind of a certain moral standard. And I don't want to sound like this is like the NBA is ethical or anything like that, but there is at least this idea that there's a larger thing that no one person owns, and the fact is, the Fertittas own the UFC, and it's a private company. So we're kind of in this in-between world where they want to be respected as a sport, but they can't be the be-all, end-all yet. So we're still in the young days. It doesn't feel it, but we are.
Yeah, I suppose 20 years in, I'm sure all the other major sports around the world were still having some serious issues, but none was ever in the spotlight the way mixed martial arts is. And you're right, UFC does act and has assumed the role by their dominant franchising and buying up of all the competition. They assume the role of both lead promotion and almost commissioner. The way if the UFC wants to move forward with a rule change, they will essentially enforce that rule change because of their dominant position. Look at the way soccer kicks are seen as the unified rules, although they are part of the unified rules. But in mixed martial arts, soccer kicks exist, but not in the UFC. The UFC is a big organization, and they do have a responsibility as the biggest organization. And I think that's something that this monopolies lawsuit is probably going to explore. It's going to be an interesting 6 months for the lawsuit reasons, for the Reebok reasons, for this thing with CM Punk, for what's happening with Bellator. If Bellator, they've denied it, but if Bellator managed to get hold of Brock Lesnar and Fedor it's not a relevant fight in the grand scheme of things. But it's a fight that every single one of us are staying up to watch, regardless. It's like Pacquiao and Mayweather. It should have happened 8 years ago. But if it happens tomorrow, we're all watching. There ain't nobody not going to tune in for that. It's an interesting time to be an MMA fan. Like I said, we are at the beginning of the sport, but we are in the spotlight at the same time. I think we're done for tonight. Probably one of our shortest ones, actually. Normally we have a right rant on it, but we've done all our fight picks on a preview show. I think we're going to keep that going. Thank you to all our guests, all our writers. I know Matt wants to say one final piece before we get going. And if any of the rest of you want to pipe in, then just dive in straight after Matt's spoken. And we will see you. Good night. Just remember, DraftKings.com, it is our new sponsor, so we are going to plug the shit out of it. Check out in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video before we get going, please like it, please share it, and subscribe to the channel, because all of those things help keep us going. This year, we're planning on sending some of these beautiful creatures out to live events to come and meet you fans, get your view on what you think about the world of MMA. So everything that you do in terms of subscribing and liking and sharing helps us get towards that goal. Matt, take it away. Say good night to the people.
I just want to say thank you, MMA Latest, for this opportunity. All you guys for being here and giving me your time. Thank you to my friends, my family, anybody that's ever supported me through this. And I want to encourage everybody, whether you know me or don't, follow me on Twitter @Dolly170, hashtag vote for Dolly, hashtag CM Punk versus Dolly. We're getting the word out there. We're going to make it happen. You know, I cannot express my thank enough. Follow it, support it, will be it. I will represent all of you, and we will get this thing done, man. That's all I got to say. I'm out. Thank you, guys.
And we will be here every single step of the way if you get the call, mate. Do not worry about that. We are going to be on your shoulder like a bad disease. Chris, do you want to say something, mate, before we get off?
Oh yeah, I put links to the the Jones Cormier stuff in this group chat. I don't know if you saw that while you're moderating.
This isn't public though, so what I'll do is if you bang it back on the group, I'll share it on our Facebook page, and I will also drop a link into the show notes. So just below the DraftKings.com link, you will probably see the links for some of the drawings that Chris has done. One of the most famous MMA artists out there, so check him out. Matt's also a sports artist, so check him out as well. And good night from me, good night from everybody else, and I think, Casey, are you back tomorrow with the Fight Companion?
Probably not, but maybe.
Fair enough. All right, okay. I think Jordan's in for the Fight Companion, so I'm sure we'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week, probably, on the weigh-ins. Good night.
All right, good night.